Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this online session hosted by Flint. Thank you for joining us today, and I am sure that we are all looking forward to the time that we can meet again in person in each of our cities. It is looking quite positive, being sooner rather than later, but like you, we will find out the next step in the pandemic restrictions tomorrow. It has been such a disruptive and uncertain year, but we're absolutely delighted to be here today to grow and connect. If you haven't met me or seen me before, my name is Fee Myberg, and until the end of the month, I am the chair of the Auckland Flint leadership team, when Amy Strang will be taking over the role. But for now, it is my pleasure to be able to host this event, and joining me today is Craig Young, the CEO of 2Ans, and he will get a chance to say a few words at the end of the session. I hope that for one of the last times, I can tell you that you are responsible for your health and safety, including the exits and bathrooms. Please do take the opportunity to use the chat function to interact with the participants. If you have a question, then Nick will give you his own guidance, but Craig and I will keep an eye out on the Q&A box and put those to Nick probably towards the end of the presentation. I would now like to introduce Nick. Nick Mackeson-Smith has over 20 years of international experience in Europe, the Middle East, India, North America, Australasia, and Asia, basically across the entire globe. He specializes in coaching and developing leaders to build better teams, create more successful businesses, and deliver higher performance. Nick led the culture change, talent, and learning and development work at Spark New Zealand's Agile Transformation. Now the director of 5 New Zealand, a boutique management consultancy, he continues to work with business leaders to drive change and performance improvement. He is also the CEO of Togethrly, a startup creating and implementing world-class leading and performance enablement software, and the co-founder of Anywhere Culture, an organization dedicated to helping organizations evolve their mindsets and the ways of working to create environments where everyone feels like they belong, no matter where they are. Nick will be speaking on the topic of the future of leadership as we leave this pandemic behind. Kia ora, Nick.
Kia ora, Fee. Thank you ever so much. What a wonderful introduction. Thank you. And you must be really proud of what you've done in your time with Flint. Thanks for everything you've done for the team, and good luck with your final session. And we'll see you for the wine and cheese in the next one round.
Thanks.
Hi everyone online. My name is Nick. You've heard the introduction with the formalities, the informalities. I'm English. I've been in New Zealand for 8 years. I'm husband to Helen and father to 3 young children, Ethan, Grace, and Lucas. I've also got a cat, Lola, who's buzzing around my feet right now, who may join us. And you might wonder, why am I telling you this? This seems unusual for the start of a conference to talk about leadership. What on earth is this guy doing telling us about his wife and his life and his children and his cat? Well, you may or may not have realised over the course of the last 2 years that the world's a little bit different to what it was when we last met in 2019. Things have changed quite significantly, and what's important for us to recognise about each other and what's important for us to understand and give space for has changed. Gone are the days of us being in the office and leaving your stuff at home. Gone are the days of us being focused on all about work and nothing else. I'm actually joining you from the very salubrious location of my garage outside of my house, because my 5-year-old is homesick today from school. Not actually sick, but has a mild cough, which means he's not allowed on site at school due to their policies. Now that's significant because it means throughout the course of me being focused and delivering to you, there is a strong possibility we will have a young visitor, a 5-year-old called Lucas, who will come and say hello and talk to us about Minecraft or anything else. This is critical for us as leaders and as employees and as members of a global community to understand that that's life. And leadership for the future, post-pandemic leadership, is around helping people balance their life. Full stop. This is no longer just all about work. Fee in her intro talked about the 3 businesses that I either run or have co-founded. Anywhere Culture is specifically looking at helping organizations change the way that they work for hybrid workplaces. So it doesn't matter where people are. It literally is work where you like, as long as you get stuff done. And we think about different ways of working behaviors. We're going to talk about what's changed since the last time that I spoke to you all. But first, let's have a quick recap on where we're at in 2019. I predicted in 2019 that the future of leadership would look a little bit like this. The first thing is that you have to put people first. People over profit, people over results, people over performance. Really caring, reaching out, making certain that people have your love and your care and your empathy, and that you put their needs at the heart of everything that you do as a leader. Now, we've known for the last 2 years that you've really needed to do that in organizations. It's been all about people, making certain that people are well, that people are safe, that people feel as though they're included, that people feel as though they're looked after by their organizations. Leaders that haven't done a very good job of this are not doing a very good job of being leaders right now, and many of them are not in the workplace as a result of not putting their people first. We've seen the Great Resignation hit the newspapers over the last course of the year. People are choosing to leave organizations where they feel their needs are not being prioritized, where they feel that they are not being put first, and the businesses are operating with a focus on profit at the expense of their people. So I think we were pretty good with that one. Giving trust unearned is critical. I talked about a leader at Spark who's one of the most inspirational leaders I've ever had. His name is Grant McBeath. Many of you will know him or will have heard his name. He's the customer director at Spark. Grant had a big belief in giving trust unearned, not making people jump through hoops before you trust them with information, before you trust them with care, before you give them access to your support and your time. Now, in the pandemic, we went from being in the office where people could see what you were doing to literally the next day being at home and no one being able to see what you could do, no one being able to see what you were working on, how you were working on it, who you were working with, whether collaboration was happening or not. And we didn't have the sophistication of technology to be able to track and record and have visibility of those things. So truly, 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 we do as leaders need to give trust unearned. We have had to, and we will continue to. In terms of being lifelong learners, the fact that we're never done, we're never at the end of our game, we're never at the peak of our craft, we absolutely need to constantly be looking at ways to reinvent ourselves. Be like Madonna is the phrase that buzzes around in my mind all the time, constantly looking to be relevant, remain relevant, and then be ahead of the curve. For us, moving from being in an office, working with people all day, every day, literally every single one of us had to find new ways to connect, new ways to learn, new ways to deliver messaging, new tools to use, new policies and procedures to come up with. And as leaders in the business, we had to come up with new ways for our teams to connect and engage. All of that required learning, being proactive in going and finding information, trying to understand, what have I missed? How can I get better? What am I losing? What am I lacking? Where could things be different? How might we look to find different ways to achieve this? Which feeds into this idea of relentless curiosity. Relentless curiosity is the belief that literally everything is discoverable. What we need to do is come up with really great questions and be relentless in asking them of everyone, not taking things at face value, but going and understanding and interrogating to understand why. And in the pandemic, we've seen an awful lot of people taking information at face value and believing it to be true. And relentless curiosity helps us work out what's true, what's not. What are different ways to view these perspectives? How might we bring another voice or another opinion to the front? Now, leaders needed at the time to focus on enabling other people to be successful, and never so much has that been true now, post-pandemic, as it was in 2019, that the role of the leader is to help other people to be successful. The people in your team aren't there to make you be successful, to make you look good as a leader, to help you achieve your goals. It's actually quite the other way around. It's your role as a leader is to help everyone else around you to achieve their personal and their professional aspirations. If you can do that and you've got the right people and you've lined them up, you've got great levels of engagement and motivation because you care about your people, then what they deliver is your organizational drive, your organizational need, your organization's purpose. So that enablement function we talked about in 2019 is equally critical now. We talked about the idea of total inclusion. Every single person matters. Doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter where they come from, doesn't matter what their background is, doesn't matter what their beliefs are, doesn't matter what their level of skill or their level of capability is. Your role as a leader is to make certain that every single person's voice is heard. Now, we talked about this in a time when hearing someone's voice really was in a meeting room. You could very easily look around the table and know who's spoken and who hasn't. But in a world where we were forced with barriers to not see the people we're working with all day long. I couldn't tap someone on the shoulder. I couldn't look over the desk and see what Sue's working on, for example. I would need to do something different. So leaders in the last couple of years have had to be deliberate in going to connect with those people proactively rather than waiting, ensuring that they are deliberately drawing out every single one of the people in their team so that their voice is seen by all. And that feeds really nicely into this concept we talked about a couple of years ago about connectors. Your role as a leader is to connect those people who need to know stuff with people who do know stuff. Now, in a post-pandemic world, the knowledge gap that exists between those people who are within conversations and those people who are excluded from conversations is getting bigger. It's getting broader. Now, one would think that with knowledge management systems, access would be increasing, but unfortunately, we still have this belief that knowledge is power to those that hold it. Now, my view and how things should change is knowledge is power if it's shared with everybody. We're thinking now about how might we democratize learning, how might we democratize all information across an organization and connect every person and every team with every piece of data so that they might make better decisions. So that's what we predicted back in 2019. Scary what happened next. I myself was sitting at home thinking, I need to reinvent myself. I need to change what I focus on. I need to change my business model. I have to be a lifelong learner. I have to go and help other people to be successful who are losing their jobs around me. I have to make certain that all of my mates feel as though they're part of this journey. I have to give trust to people who've never done this before, and bring them into the fold into my business to help me do new things. I have to connect people who've never met each other because we as a team need to drive together in order to be successful. So all of these things were true for me as well. As we sat in 2020, I remember sitting outside with my head in my hands thinking, what am I going to do? My entire business is focused around being in a room or in a space with people. I can't do that anymore. There's nothing I can do in a COVID world that allows me to do those things. So this idea of relentless curiosity, this idea of lifelong learning, this idea of how do I put people first, how do I understand what their problems are, solve their problems, understand what they need, helped me to reimagine myself and my business. Okay, so this is something that fits in all aspects of life, something that I've lived personally, and I'm sure that many people on this call will have done exactly the same. I'd love you to pop in the chat if you can, just a rating out of 10. You don't need to say what the name of the leader, but I'd love you to give a rating out of 10. How well do you think leaders around you did? Doesn't have to be your direct manager. It could be someone further up in an organization, could be someone you've seen on TV, could be Jacinda, could be anyone you like. But a 1 to 10 rating of 1, hey, we didn't do a very good job in leading through that pandemic. We didn't do a very good job in being curious and thinking about relentless learning. Up to 10, which is, hey, we nailed that. All of our leaders, everyone that we see did a fantastic job. So just pop it in the chat if you can. There's 29 people currently sitting on this call. Hey, Sophie Ricketts, Vikas, Larissa, look at all these lovely people. Maddie, Valerie, Jeff Clark. Hello, Jeff Clark. Is that GC? Hello, Jeff Clark. Caitlin, Fee, Jared. Hey. It's lovely to see all you lovely people. Some familiar names on here. Elizabeth Taylor thinks that 8. A real mix we've got here. We've got some who said 8, some who are saying 4, 6. Anna and Larissa, 2s and 3s. We're not going to ask who those leaders are. Why the range? Why do we think such a range? My direct manager at the time, 12 out of 10. Look at that. Sammy, what a brilliant score. Please go and tell your leader that you just gave them a rating 12 out of 10. I'm sure they'd love to hear that. Why do we have such a range of scores? Well, the reality is we've never had anything like this before. we have seen, nice one, Bradley, a 9 out of 10. We've seen people encounter head on a real mindset clash. So there are a number of mindsets that I believe are critical in order to be successful in this world, in a post-pandemic world. The first, above all else, is a growth mindset. The idea of a growth mindset is this belief that we are not done, ever. There's always more. There's always an opportunity. There's always more to do and learn. There's always a vulnerability. There's always something that we are less good at compared to other people. And there is an opportunity to get better. Now, leaders who have led through the pandemic with a growth mindset tend to have really high scores on that rating. They're the people most likely to go and say, well, we need to rip things up and start again. Or we've never done this before. What do you think, team? How might we do this? Or they've asked their peers around them, what are you doing? What have you learned? What's working so far? What isn't working so far? So all of these mindsets, these behaviors of going and connecting with people leads to really great scores. None of us have ever led through a global pandemic before. None of us. There wasn't a rule book. Now, I chaired the board of a local school. We had a pandemic plan. It was a massive book that had all of the steps that we need to do in the event that there was a pandemic. And it sat on the desk and we looked at it once a year and we never thought we'd use it. And when we got it and we were going through, even with a plan, we were still saying, what do we do? How do we do this? This is unprecedented. We've never seen this before. Now, those with a fixed mindset, those with the belief that they are awesome at what they do, those that believe that the old way of doing things will still serve them well, those that have the belief of, this is just, it'll pass, or this is just a moment, we'll just have our meetings on Teams or Zoom, it'll be okay, we'll just do the same thing, have found it really difficult and have largely struggled, and it leads to very low scores, unfortunately, for other people. So we're looking here at a necessity, not a nice to have, a necessity for all of our leaders to evolve and change the way that they lead and change the way that they connect with every person in their organization. It's fundamentally shifting the view of what that role is. I want to show you a completely non-scientific graph. It has no numbers on the side. There's no scale. It's indicative in terms of size. You will have seen these beautiful curves all the time with COVID infection rates. And I like to use the same graph to think about the importance of all of these aspects that we've talked about. It's always been important to have a growth mindset. It's always been important to give trust unearned. It's always been important to connect with people. It's always been important to be inclusive. All of these things have been around for ages and ages and ages. But what's changing is the volume. We're changing the magnitude of these things. Think about a stereo turned down to a really low volume. Now, all of those things would have been buzzing around in 1980. They were all there. In 1990s, it was starting to turn up the volume a little bit. Now, in a post-pandemic leadership, well, I'll get out of the way. I'm in the way. In a post-pandemic leadership world, we've turned it up to 11. This is like Spinal Tap, turn it up, blow the speakers up, Bill and Ted, everything blows. These things are so critical for us to make certain that we are focusing on these things above all else. Now, there are 4 buckets that sit underneath this. There's 4 core things that I believe as leaders we need to focus on to get this right for our people. We have an obligation to do this for the people in our teams. Those of you who are on this call who are not yet leaders or not yet in positions of influence, think again, because you are. My belief is leadership is not the title that you've got. Leadership is a state of being. It's a frame of mind. It's around the actions that you take, the influence that you can create, the space that you're able to play in. So all of these things are applicable to every single person on this call. Put some pressure on, put some heat on those around you. Start to role model some of these things and see what happens. There'll be some people at different levels in the organization who'll react in different ways, and get curious about it. Ask why. Why are people reacting in this way? How might I help those people to learn and grow and continue to reinvent themselves? So there's 4 buckets. Number 1 is around enabling anywhere. And I mean literally anywhere. Work wherever you choose to be. I was saying to Craig before this call started, it doesn't matter if you're in the office or at home. It doesn't matter if I'm running this call from my garage. It doesn't matter if I'm in the drive-through queue at Taco Bell. Well, actually does, probably, because I'll be eating the taco and not focusing on you. But it doesn't matter where I am. I could be on the beach. I could be at the batch. I could be in the South Island. I could even be in Australia or Mexico or the UK or Antarctica. As long as I've got Wi-Fi and it works, and I have the ability and the desire to focus on getting stuff done, happy days. We've got the tools, the technology, the behaviors, the skills, the practice they're developing now. So anywhere is now a real possibility, where before it would have been a pipe dream. I'd often talked, for those of you who are on this call who saw me a couple of years ago, I talked about this when we were all stuck in the office. Let your people work from home, let your people work from the beach, let your people go on holiday, let your people travel and become digital nomads. Now we've seen and experienced it. We know that people still work. We know that people still get things done. We know that we can trust people to perform. We know that we can trust people to balance their life. Now our role is to say, hey, we should just get rid of all constraints, all physical barriers that we've put in place, all policies that we've created that restrict our people from operating where they choose to be. So it's around full empowerment. The second bucket, and I've talked a bit about this and I'll keep talking about it because it's my job title at Five is Chief Curiosity Officer for a very specific reason. My job is to be curious. As a leader, as a practitioner, as an owner of a business, is to get curious, is to understand problems, understand the underlying causes of those problems, understand the beliefs that go alongside those problems, understand the values that might be driving those beliefs, understand past patterns and histories and behaviors and trends, understand what's been done before and why it didn't work and what else could be done, understanding future possibility and hopes and dreams and aspirations. All of these things are the role of the leader. All of these things are for us to discover. And we can choose as leaders to be conscious of that and make an effort to be relentlessly curious. So we can choose to say, someone will tell me when I need to, I've got other things to focus on. The third bucket on here, and I'll go through these in detail as we go, is around non-negotiable well-being. Non-negotiable. That means if someone needs to step away from the screen because they have Zoom fatigue, that's cool. If someone wants to shift their working hours, that's cool. If someone chooses to fit with their life to log in at 5 a.m. and finish work at 11 a.m., that's cool. If someone chooses to have a day where they do no work during the course of the week and choose to pick up the hours and ensure that work gets done on the weekend to fit with their life, that's cool. If someone chooses not to have their work emails on their personal device, that's cool. To allow and enable people to have yoga classes or exercise or go for a run, or even choose not to put their video camera on if they feel as though it's an intrusion in their life. To give people space to be on mute for an entire call and contribute in a different way, especially if they find that calls are overwhelming. To give people flexibility to choose what technology they're using, to ensure that everyone at home has the ability of a safe working environment with a mouse that doesn't give them RSI or carpal tunnel syndrome. All of these things are non-negotiable. Full inclusion, full diversity, full equity, full accessibility for all people, no exceptions. Now that's hard. That's the only one here that requires dollars. The other ones requires a belief and a mindset and a behavior. The last one in here is around a focus on achievement. Now look, it's all well and good for us to be lovely humans and care about people, care about where might we go and what we do and give them space and flexibility and freedom. But we're businesses. We've got things to do. We've got to achieve stuff. We've got to deliver performance. We've got to satisfy our customers' demands. We've got to satisfy our shareholders' demands. We've got to satisfy the hierarchy if you work within a hierarchical organization's demands, or the board, or your learners if you lead at a school or a university. There's always a need for you to focus on getting stuff done. There must be a focus on achievement. There must be forward momentum. This isn't around being nice and fluffy and comfortable and staying still. This is around continuous growth, continuous improvement, continuous drive, future focus and success. They are the 4 things. I'm going to talk about each of these individually now. While I'm talking, post your reactions in the chat. There's a poll as well as an event quiz. If you click on the polls and quizzes down the bottom, how keen are you get back to meeting in person? It's a single choice. I wish you could tick all of them, but you can't. It's a single choice. You must choose. Are you super keen? Bring it on, with drinks and nibbles, of course. That sounds like a bribe to me. That sounds like a bribe, drinks and nibbles. How about meeting in person? Because I want to just meet with a person. That's better. I'm not there yet. Maybe still a few online options as well. Yeah, so this idea of having the ability to choose, or not at all. I love being online. I love being at home. Pop your thoughts on here. 21 seconds, 18 people responded. Look at that. Super keen, bring it on. Is it the wine and the drinks and nibbles that are swaying it for you? It probably is. It would sway me too if it was on there. Think about this. You can have drinks and nibbles at home as well. What have we got? A couple more people still to answer. We're probably about there. We'll end the poll if we can, please, Fee or Craig. Thank you. So we've got, sharing the results, we've got about 54% of people saying, super keen, bring it on, I want the drinks and nibbles. Now, it's not surprising. It's hardly surprising that people want to be together. We as humans are social beings. We are creatures of connection. We crave connection with other people. And isolation causes, we know, significant impacts on our mental health and our well-being. So it's really important to recognize this as we think about, well, what about those other people? What about the additional 33% who'd rather, flex, choose, do both, and the 13% of people who'd say, hey, do you know what? I just want to be at home. I don't want to go back in the office. This is lovely. I can get stuff done. We have to make certain that we are inclusive to all. It is non-negotiable well-being. So those who are in the office, those who are back to meeting in person, those that have those connections and all of those beautiful perks and benefits of the cheese and wine, what happens for the people who are left at home? What happens for the people who feel more comfortable or safer or more productive by not being there in person? What do they get? Is that fair? So we now as leaders have to think about equity, the idea of equity, that everybody gets the same, irrespective of where they are. How might you design your events so that, not two hands, but you as leaders, how might you design your events so that those people at home get the same perks as those that attend in person? Those people at home use the same tools and technology that those people who are in the room do. Not one gear for one group and one gear for the other. I remember in one organisation here in New Zealand, I was in Auckland, most of my team were in Auckland, and I had one person who was based in Wellington, and we dialed them into the calls, and they were there, they were included in all of our conversations, and invariably at the end of the conversations, we continued the conversation, the person in Wellington left, and they weren't part of anything else that followed. They weren't part of our side conversations, our water cooler chat, our social conversations. They didn't come to the kitchen with us and make a coffee and talk about the weekend. They didn't sit in the canteen and eat cheese and crackers and fruit like we did at morning tea. They were excluded. None of us deliberately excluded that person. We unintentionally excluded that person. But the impact was great, to the point at which I remember having a one-on-one with them in Wellington. I'd flown to Wellington, and they said, I don't feel included in our team meetings. And I was surprised. But why? You're always there. We make certain you have a say. We make certain your voice is heard. We always come to you first because you're on the call. Why don't you feel included? And it was all the other stuff that sat around it was the stuff that was missing. All that other stuff that we hadn't given any consideration to was the stuff that was actually really important to that individual. Just seeing here, we've got very keen to work from home as long as kids are at school and daycare. Yeah, that's awesome, Larissa. Like, having kids at home is challenging, but we have the ability to change the expectation that our employees have and our teammates have around having kids at home. This idea of flex and balance, this idea of non-negotiable well-being is, hey, do you know what? Today, I've got kids at home with me. My productivity is lower than it is going to be when I don't have kids with me. My ability to focus is restricted, and that's okay because it's for a time. It's not forever. Okay, and we all have the ability to go up and down. We can turn the volume up and down on Spotify as and when we choose to. Yeah, Craig is saying, I hear you, my kids are gone, but I can imagine the juggle. Look, I I had 3 at home with me last week when I was running calls. It isn't easy, but that's preferable to knowing that you're compromising the health or the safety of your family. So we have a job to make certain that we are inclusive to all. I think you all can see the results of that poll. We've got 54% saying they want the drinks and the nibbles. How about everyone gets drinks and nibbles, even if they're at home? Send out a pandemic pack, send out a work from home thing, design your events so that everyone has the big reveal at the same time. Give people a budget to be able to fund their own drinks or snacks. All these things are possible. They just require some curiosity. How might we do that? Yeah, thanks, Craig. I did have my son with me at the Waikato Future of Work conference. It was work from conference. He came on stage. I brought my truck from my to 10 to play with on stage. He even got involved in talking to some of the participants at the conference, which was kind of cute. And that's just part of it, right? We have the ability to role model a new normal, a new sense of normality. Cool. So enable anywhere. What sits within this bucket? Post your reactions or your thoughts in the chat here. And as they come through, super happy to respond to the questions rather than saving up at the end. So enabling anywhere is making certain that any conversation at any level, deep strategic conversations or superficial social relations, whatever that might mean, is possible. Doesn't matter where they are. My organization is energy management. It's productivity. Yes, energy management is a great productivity tool. I'll give you an example. One business that I co-found with Emma Kirkman, who is the other co-founder, is Anywhere Culture. Emma gets up really early. Like really early. This morning she was up at 5 and she was productive at 5 o'clock, churning out work and filling up either my inbox or my text box or my Teams asynchronous chat box with things to do. Now Emma knows that actually my energy in the morning is directed elsewhere. My focus, my attention and my energy is focused on my family, my kids, shipping 3 kids out of the door rather than shipping a product. So she doesn't book things in with me at that time because she knows we've talked about what's the right time. As we go through the course of the day, her focus shifts to her health and well-being with fitness training and making certain she has time to reflect and to journal. I move into a phase of productivity where I start to get things done. In the evenings, Emma's productivity drops and hers flips over to family. My productivity goes up. I'm a night owl. I stay awake until 1-2 o'clock in the morning repeatedly through choice. It's when I'm at my best. It's when I'm at my most creative. Now we connect and we work based on our energy cycles. We overlap in the middle and we use very cool tools for us to be able to connect asynchronously so that we are both working at optimal energy times. If we try to schedule a meeting, one of us is on our best or one of us is on our worst, it rarely would end well. Okay, so I wouldn't say energy management tool. I would just say, hey, think about having conversations with your teams. When are each of you at your best? Right, what's going to be the right environment for you to get the best out of you in terms of performance? Great question, Maddie. Thanks for that. So enabling anywhere here is around ensuring that you've got the right tools, the right technology, the right processes, the right policies, but also making certain that your behaviors and habits are the right ones as well. Digital delivery. Digital delivery means that you don't have to ship a physical, I'm looking around me for a physical thing to hold up. I haven't got any anymore. I don't have books. I don't have reports that I give to people anymore. I've got a warranty book from a lawnmower. That's all I've got to hand in my office. Can you believe? Because it's all around digital delivery. Because I don't have to deliver a physical asset anymore. I could do it anywhere. I can deliver that report if I'm sitting in Cornwall Park under a tree. It's the same. The client still gets the asset, they get the delivery. We as a team can collaborate on that asset in a digital way as well. We annotate together, we use Microsoft 365 products and we use Google Workspace products. Even some of the worst products allow some really great collaboration online. Not saying who's bad, by the way. We use those, they're great tools. But this whole idea of being able to collaborate together, to be able to see other people's work, to be able to comment on other people's suggestions, using virtual whiteboards or virtual canvases like Microsoft Whiteboard or Miro or Mural or FigJam, there's hundreds of them. They're all cool. They're all awesome. Doesn't really matter which one you use. use the one that suits your team best. Have the choice about which tools are accessible to all, which tools are usable to all. Some of you might have a Mac, some of you might have a PC. Think about choosing a software tool that works for everybody rather than the one that works for the organization. Collaboration tools are really great because what it means is they can enable things like asynchronous conversations. Now, for those of you that don't know the term asynchronous and what it means, sorry for those of you that do, synchronous is we're all together at the same time having a conversation. It's like a meeting. We all come together, we all talk about a thing, we all share our perspectives. It's quite time intensive because it allows every single person the opportunity to talk, and you might go around a couple of times and disagree and backwards and forwards, but we're all together. Now what it relies on is us all being available at exactly the same time to be able to have that conversation. And it tends to be a longer chunk of time for us to be able to do that. The idea of asynchronous communication is a little bit like a WhatsApp or a Facebook messenger thing. You send a message, you don't expect an immediate response. You know that it's a different tool. If you want an immediate response, it's a phone call. Okay, but a text message doesn't require or warrant an immediate response. Asynchronous communication is taking that perspective to team collaboration. So I might add a comment on a Miro board, I might tag someone, I'm not expecting them to tag it immediately. If I need an immediate answer, which is incredibly rare, I pick up the phone and I give them a call. But instant message is asynchronous. Our expectations have changed. It's really cool. That means that every single person can fit that work in around other things in their life. If I've got 3 minutes, I'm going to go and fit in a 3-minute task. It's rare that I have an hour to sit down and have a meeting with somebody, but I can absolutely find 10 chunks of 6 minutes over the course of the day to do those activities, if that makes sense. Those 60 minutes are available in lots of thin slices. So the tools that we choose, the habits and the practices that we put in place enables us to be able to work from anywhere at any time. Doesn't matter who we're working with or even what time zone they're in. I'm currently running a leadership development program for a client. We've got people in Poland, in the UK, in South Africa, and we're here in New Zealand. Very, very, very small times that we connect together as people, short space of time, very infrequently. But the ability for us to discuss and connect asynchronously is there all the time, 24/7. Okay, so it's shifting our norms and our habits and our behaviours to enable an anywhere culture and an anywhere of organising yourselves. The third thing is around making it engaging. It's got to be highly engaging. Watching a video, those of you who are watching the recording of this, good luck to you. It's great when you're in the conversation, you're having the chat, but watching a recording back is dull as dishwater because you don't have the ability to go, oh, I've got a question, can I... You've lost that ability to be part of that conversation. So whatever we do has to make certain that it is engaging. It is around an ongoing connection. It does allow people, if they choose to connect with it later, to still be able to engage. And here's how we do it. Hey everyone who's watching this recording of this Two Anns Flint webinar. Thanks for joining us on the recording. Sorry you weren't able to join us in person. If you've got any questions at all, any comments, anything you'd like to add, I'd love to hear from you. Drop me an email, nick@5nz.com. If you want to give me a call, you can as well. You'll find my details on the website. Don't be a stranger, reach out and I'll happily join the dots for you. Thanks. So it's not hard. It requires a focus, a thought process, an offer to people and an ongoing commitment to supporting that conversation. So it doesn't stop in the moment. People who weren't there don't get excluded. They feel included. Here is around enabling people. The digital divide is real in New Zealand. It's big in New Zealand. There are those that have, there are those that don't. There are people who are tech savvy and those that are not. Our role as leaders is to ensure that every single person has the means, the knowledge, the skills, the confidence to be able to use the tech that we need in order for them to be able to work from wherever they choose to be. That might mean giving people a little bit more time to focus on Miro or Microsoft Teams or understanding what asynchronous messaging is and why that works. Giving people a little bit more focus, care and attention on how do you use those tools very effectively. Giving them a safe space to play rather than expecting people to just be able to do it. Another thing on here, and I'm a massive fan of time box components. I used to be horrifically bad at this pre-pandemic because we had all the time in the world. But in a post-pandemic era where we're balancing everything and our entire life comes into it, being ruthless with your time and being deliberate about prioritizing and allocating chunks of your time is so crucial. So for me, that might mean I will put the timer on, I'll spend 45 minutes on emails, and I will only spend 45 minutes on emails. And whatever I haven't done in that time, I save it for the next time box. I'll have 10, 15 minutes to go and have a wellness break to focus on not getting a migraine and not staring at a screen all day, every day, or to go and talk to somebody, have a conversation with someone, or go for a walk outside and look at a tree, or get wet, whatever it might be. But this idea of time boxing things throughout the course of the day to force you to stick to the plan, to force you to make certain that you are doing the work and moving things forwards. Your time boxes don't need to be structured. They could be research. It could be, what can I find in the next hour that helps me understand something? I'm going to do research time box. It could be a family time box. My kids are very good now at understanding if daddy's in a time box, wait till the time box is up, and then they get a time box as well. So all about understanding that we need to flex and we need to balance and be mindful of everyone's individual circumstances. And then the last thing is this concept of hybrid by design. Don't design your activities or your events to be preferably come along. You'll get better treatment if you come in person, and if you don't, you're a second-class citizen. Hey, if you come into the office, you get all the extra perks and it'll be a great conversation and you get the social chat and, you know, it'll be great for your career. But if you dial in online, yeah, you're only going to hear the official message and everything else is excluded. Design your events so that there's space for that to happen no matter where people are. Have a room before the event starts where people can have the social conversations that they normally would do while they're waiting for coffee. Have a space after the event where people can connect to say, hey, what did you think about that? And how did that go down? Oh yeah, so how's your partner? All those things can be created. They can be even on the same Teams call. They could be a post-breakout room chat. Doesn't matter what it is. But make certain that you design your events for hybrid, not just for in-person. The next one, struggle to actually stick to time boxing. Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard. It's about making certain that we break old habits. We're really good as humans at being distracted by lots of different things. If something happens over there, you hear a noise, you get an alert, you get a notification. My guidance to you, switch your notifications off on your watch. Turn them off on your phone. Focus on things. Put an out of office on that says, hey, thanks for emailing me. I'm currently in a research time box. I check emails at this time. I'll come back to you when I can. And it removes this drive for people to get in touch with you. So it is really, really hard, especially if you like things as much as I do, and you like being distracted and you like the shiny. It's just around learning discipline and learning that we can do all the things. We absolutely can. We just can't do them all at the same time. Cool. Relentless curiosity here. Relentless discovery. Everything's discoverable. Literally everything. What's at the bottom of the ocean? I want to know. We know more about the moon than we do about the bottom of the ocean. That's bonkers. It baffles me. Why don't we go and find out? Let's go and find out. Well, it's hard. That's the barrier. It's easier to go to the moon than it is to get to the bottom of the ocean. Mind-boggling. Why? How might we solve that? How do we overcome it? Right? Those are the kinds of questions that get you to places that seem to be impossible. Now, with people, the relentless discovery here is, what do people value? What do people feel? What do people fear? What do people want? What do they desire? What motivates them? What makes them tick? What suffering have they had? What experiences have they had? What other languages can they speak? All those things can mean that they can do things better, that you can help them better, that you can foster connection, that you can bring joy to their workplace. All of that stuff, critical. Discover everything, right? It's not just around the work that they do or what they've done. This is around literally, who are you as a person? What do you care about? Where are you going? What have you done? What have you tried? What have you thought about? The lot. Actually show an interest in other people. Get stuck into those people around you. Reach out deliberately and find out what makes them tick. Why do they do what they do? We've talked a lot about growth mindset and lifelong learning. The trick here is to find all the questions rather than find all the answers. Go and get hungry for questions. Go and ask people, what is your best coaching question? What is your best discovery question? If you've got some in the chat, pop them in the chat. Share your best discovery questions here with the group. We'd love to see what you've got. and I'll pop some in after the event has finished. Non-negotiable well-being, we've talked a little bit about this at the moment. There's a good question here about time boxing. My current tool of choice, what do I use? I use my phone and a timer. My iPhone, and I set my timer. I'm not a big believer in getting high fancy technology that does all the things when a simple thing will do. My phone has got a stopwatch. That's all you need. The alarm goes off and I stop doing a thing and do something else. Easy as. Hope that helps there. Email flags, it's too complicated to track it. It's too much. Timer. Non-negotiable well-being. People first. All about people, care about people, care about people. How are they? Daily check-in. Where are you at? Yesterday you said you were great. You still great today? Can I help you? What do you need? Are you really okay? How do we support you more? What else can we do? Think about empathy. Think about connecting with a genuine desire to help and care and show love for those people. When you're listening, listen with a desire to understand that person's perspective rather than critique it or judge it in any way. You're not looking to give them solutions. You're looking to understand. All linking back into curiosity. Here we need to make certain that we're thinking around how might we create human-to-human interactions when people aren't sitting right next to us. Can still have it. This is a human-to-human interaction. I'm engaging with 32 humans right now through a conversation. You all have the ability to connect with me, and some of you are asking me questions directly, which is really cool. Thank you, Craig. You've sent me a question directly. So they're there. They're always there, even if we're not sitting next to that person. But we have to make certain that all of those people are front of mind in everything we do. We have to be intentional in giving trust unearned. The Grant McBeath thing that sticks with me forever. We have to deliberately go out of our way to tell people, I trust you. I trust you to do the right thing. I trust that you've got this thing. If you want some support, help, I'm here, can help. I trust that you've got this. And then the last thing on here is around ensuring that everyone has the ability to have balance in the way that they want balance. This isn't about creating a flexible work policy where, every week, 1 day a week, you can work from home 1 day if you choose. This is, hey, do you know what? I don't want 1 day a week working from home. I just want to have half an hour later drop off so I can get my kids to school, and I want to leave a bit earlier to pick them up, and then I'll work a bit later in the evening without having to jump through hoops, without having to do policies and documents, just because we trust people to do the right thing. And the last thing here is the reality check that we are part of a business. We need to do things. We've got to deliver. We have to obtain results. We have to drive things forward. There has to be the fruit of our labours. We also need to make certain that there's clarity on what are we even doing? What are we doing it for? Who are we doing it for? Why are we doing that work in the first place? So ensuring that there is real clarity about the purpose of the work. Simon Sinek's written a brilliant book around Start With The Why, understanding the importance of aligning yourself with the purpose. And if you don't agree with the purpose, why would you do the work? So a lot of the Great Resignation, again, is driven by this lack of alignment with purpose. We've got to move things forward. We've got to get things done. If you have a to-do list or a time quadrant or a flag system or an email process or an automated workflow, it doesn't matter which tool you use, as long as you get things done. As long as you do more today than you did yesterday and you're incrementally better, happy days. Here, because we are distributed, because we're remote, it's really important that your work is transparent to all, not saved on your desktop, not I'll give it to you when it's ready. It's always ready for people to see. It's always ready for people to contribute. It's always ready for people to give their thoughts, their perspective, their feedback, their frame of mind. So host it in the cloud. Give everyone access when it's still a blank page. Tell people what your intent is. Ask people for help from the get-go. Make that work transparent to all. Make it accessible to all. Same thing is true for visibility performance, right? We need to know if we are doing the right thing, if we're delivering against our work. Not so that we can call people out and shame them or get rid of them, but so that we can help each other. If someone in your team is struggling, they're not able to perform, you want to know about it so that you as a leader can wrap all the support and care you can around them, to give them the tools, to give them the learning, to give them everything they need to help them be successful. And then the last thing is making certain that literally every single person doing the work has visibility of the outcomes that they're delivering. Now, the outcomes are not the same as the outputs. The outcomes are beyond that. The outputs are the things that we make, the things that we create through our actions, our behaviours. It's like, I've made a report. I've produced an Excel spreadsheet. I've launched a plan a mobile phone plan. I've built a new cell tower. Right? That's an output. What happens as a result of that thing? People who weren't able to get signal and weren't able to connect now can, and they can call their loved ones. Right? What happens with that report? The executive team can make really smart decisions around who needs more support, care, and love. Okay, so the outcomes are the things that we need to make certain that we as leaders now have sight on. Not just do the work, not just ship outputs, but what are those outputs for? What do those outputs do for people, for the communities that we serve, for our customers that we're here for our clients, for our teams? Now, to do that as leaders, and this is where the curiosity and the growth mindset and all these other bits about inclusion, they all come together, is going backwards. We need to know what our people value. We need to know if that's aligned to the organisation. We need to know what our people believe about the work, about our customers, about our strategy, about what can and can't be done, about what the rules might be, about what's allowed or what's possible. We need to know what mindsets they choose to bring to their daily interactions. Do they choose to bring one of, I've got this, I don't need any help. Do they choose to bring one of, as long as I'm okay, that's fine, and don't worry about other people? Or do they bring one of a well-being or an inclusion or a growth mindset? And those things inform the choices that we make about where we play and where we don't, whether we time box or we don't, whether we bring our 5-year-old onto the call or not, whether we turn our video on or not, whether we actually use the flexibility that we've been given or not. And those choices belong to us. They don't belong to the organisation, they belong to us. And they have an impact on the behaviours that we have, that we demonstrate, that people judge us on, that they judge our performance on, our ability to do the job, and ultimately our ability to produce the outputs and the outcomes. So all of these things are linked, and we as leaders can't just focus on outputs anymore. We're not production lines. This isn't about shipping widgets. It's not about automating. This is around building deep connections with humans. It always has been and always will be. That's it from me. I'd love to open the floor to questions. I think we've got 5 minutes or so left, 5 and a bit minutes for questions. You can either put them in the chat, or maybe Fee could turn your volume on so we can have a conversation.
Yes, hello. That was so good. Thank you, Nick. We do have a question here from Jeff Clark. GC.
Hi,
Speaking of trust unearned, some leaders believe the opposite, trust no one. I believe this comes from the win at all cost style that have been in businesses historically. How can we bring leaders around who believe you're naive to give trust unearned and it's a sign of your lack of experience in leadership? Or do we just wait until these leaders retire? Totally agree with that, because I also have the question on how do we drive the sort of change or lead upwards in organizations that might be a bit archaic. Yeah.
Nice. I love your question, GC. I love it. And Fee, thank you for adding your perspective too. I don't think it's around convincing people. I also don't think it's around waiting for people. I think life's too short to wait. I think it's about being the change. Right? You be the change. You create that space. You have the ability to lead differently for your people. You have the ability to role model what giving trust unearned looks like for your people and those around you. You have the ability to show them the outputs and the outcomes that come from that way of leading. And they have a choice. Those leaders have a choice to observe and understand and see and get curious or not. And if they don't, that's cool. You as a leader have a choice to stay and give your wares and your work and your efforts and your love to that organisation, or go and do it somewhere else. We've all got choice. We all absolutely do. But I would say be the change. Show people that a different way is possible. Change does come. It really does. Good question. Don't try and convince them and don't wait for them to go. Just do it. Just do it now.
And mate, there was another one that popped up through the chat, which I thought is quite practical, but it's if no one wants to be face-to-face and in the office, should we try and encourage them?
Should we try and encourage them? What for?
To come into the office. I mean,
I guess the question is, what's the purpose of coming to the office? Right? The purpose of coming to the office used to be so that we knew that people were doing their job. Like, we don't need that anymore to know that someone's doing the job. If the purpose of coming to the office is, hey, there's a specific collaboration project that we want to work on, and it's currently impossible or really hard to do that, or we want to celebrate and have a party. We want you all to be here for the party, or we want to sit down and have a conversation in person with some stakeholders, or do a physical activity. Like, they are reasons to come together as a group. It doesn't have to be in the office. But if the purpose is just do it for the sake of doing it, nah, don't bother. Why would you? Thanks, Jenna. Jenna sent a message, probably was private. Thanks, Jenna. Yeah, happy to chat. Everyone, happy to chat after this call later. You've got my address. Watch the video back. We can talk. Any more questions? Comments? Fears? It's okay to be afraid. Stuff's hard, right? You're being the change. You're leading something different. I don't want to say don't be afraid. I want to say be afraid and do it anyway. It's really important that we do this. We have to drive this change, because otherwise we will have more of the Great Resignation. We'll end up having nobody left. Thanks, Sammy. Any more questions? Comments?
All right, well, I think no more are coming through. If you guys do have any more questions, feel free to pop those through to us and reach out to Nick, or even through us, we can help facilitate that. Otherwise, Nick, thank you again. You are always so engaging and inspiring. Really love to hear from you. I will hand over to Craig to give some closing comments.
Yeah, kia ora, everyone, and welcome to what is day 3 of isolation here. They had the dreaded 2-line test come through on Sunday. So, yep, this stuff had coming through. Hey, really enjoyed the session, Nick. I mean, even old dogs like me can learn new things, obviously. And I always remember at a very, very first Future Work conference, being told that, you're going to have to retrain and learn new things all the way through your career, no matter how old you are. And that's such a great thing. I did want to pick up on one thing that I think is so critical, your little line chart, which had values at the very left-hand side. One of the things I've learned through my own life, but also working and mentoring people as they come through, you've got to land on what those values are, not just as an organization, but as individuals. Because once you know where your values are, that will help you understand so many other things about yourself, what jobs suit you, what organizations you want to work for, all those sorts of things. Because if they misalign, you do really can find yourself in a bit of a stew. So once again, thanks everybody. We are doing 1 or 2 online events just at the moment, just to get us through, and really looking forward to hearing what the announcements will be tomorrow. And thinking that May, June will look like time that we'll be able to get back together again and networking over some drinks and some nibbles. So, kia ora.
And remote drinks and nibbles, Craig. And
remote drinks and nibbles. Yes, Nick. Okay. We've got to keep the couriers busy even when we get back to normal. So, thanks everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. And if you're not productive after lunch, like me, maybe go and make your lunch now and have a little bit of a break. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, team.
Thank you.
Tack.